Thank you, everybody.
So we're going to, and just before we start, we've talked a lot about the examples here, and these are obviously special areas we made for BlizzCon, but we've actually got a real-world example that who here has played through the most recent patches and been playing on Argus? Everyone familiar with the islands of Argus? So what we've got here is actually a cool little video. We'll play it a couple of times because it's quite quick. That one of our producers put together while we were building out one of the islands of Argus. And what this kind of shows you is an overhead view of the daily changes that happen in the zone.
That's a lot of iteration.
That is a lot of iteration. So you can see the roads are changing, where buildings are changing, where the texturing is changing. And so this is a real-world example. Hopefully you guys can recognize this. I think that's the first island of Argus. And you can see, as it gets later in the month, things are a little bit more dialed down, and they're kind of just polishing at that point. But at the beginning, there's kind of lots of chaos, and there's lots of things moving around in large spaces, and islands appearing, and things getting pushed off. And that's through that iteration process. The level designer will be working on a space, and you can see things flip there and go different directions, because you'll just be like, oh, what if we try it 90 degrees this way? We're just trying to find the best combination of the assets and all of the abilities that we've been given. And that's just 1 month of work. So you can imagine that happening on every playfield that we make, on every space that we create. We kind of go through this iterative process to try and make the most of everything. OK, so we're going to open it up for some questions now. Hopefully you guys have some questions about how we should have a mic set up on the left-hand side here. OK, so a couple of things to preface. The main FAQ for World of Warcraft is at 4 p.m. today on the main stage. So questions about Battle for Azeroth or WoW Classic, which we're all very excited about those things. But we're here to talk about the level design process for World of Warcraft. So please keep your questions to kind of something that we've been talking about here. And any questions for the wider game, you can address to the FAQ at 4 p.m. So if you have a question, please. Have we got people on the side there? OK.
My favorite part. Let's have it.
Fire away.
Hi, my name is Xavier. I've got 2 questions. The first is, WoW is an open world. So how do the level designers and the quest designers work on the maps at the same time?
That's a good question. Colin, do you want to take that one?
So we work kind of hand in hand. Only one level designer is kind of in one space at any given time, but we're constantly talking back and forth and working at each other's desks just to kind of get a sense of the overall picture.
Yeah, and it depends on the space as well. Sometimes we have to have periods where the level designers are kind of working ahead of Quest, and then because we don't want, depending on the part of the tool, sometimes we don't want to have things changing too much because Quest design really want to fine-tune. We have a very polished process where we want things to look as awesome as they can. So if whole mountains are moving, that's very hard for a Quest designer to put content in for. So we kind of want to make sure that those early parts of the process that you saw in that video, that kind of chaotic movement of, we're not quite sure where things will be yet, Quest design probably hang back at that stage and kind of wait until level design team give them the all clear and kind of like, OK, we've got the most of the GO is done, most of the broad strokes are set, and then the Quest designers can start to work in the spaces when we're not going to be doing any more dramatic changes to the level design.
Good question.
OK.
Hey guys, Joe from Chicago. Thanks for doing this. Just kind of wondering about traversal. Are you designing mainly to the player only being on the ground and then if they can fly there, whatever? Or is that also taken into account from the beginning?
We do take that into account because, historically we do add flying at some point. So while we do always want to make sure spaces are easy to navigate and traversable, right? So we try to make sure that there are ways through mountain passes, that kind of thing, but we still finish the tops, and we still like to add little Easter eggs and secrets and things for players to find once they do unlock flying.
Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Drew Gelati from Danbury, Connecticut, and I am in college right now, hopefully one day to work at Blizzard. But I want to know what is any tips you guys can give to a 3D environment artist who's coming up in this, like what would be the best programs to use to get familiar with, and so on.
I think mainly make stuff. It honestly doesn't matter which software. We will train you on the software we use. Obviously, there are industry standards like Maya and Max if you're purely doing 3D modeling. I don't think doing either or would hold you back, but make stuff. We say this to students all the time. Get involved in gaming in some way. Build your portfolio, not just through demo pieces, but actually through getting involved in games projects. And they don't have to be big, professional AAA projects. They can be student projects, they can be indie projects. Just try and find ways that you can create art in a real-world environment too, as well as building your portfolio and doing everything that you would tell an art student to do. I always encourage people to get involved in making games and just go out and get your work, because it also teaches you some of the really essential soft skills that come with making a game. You've learned here today, there are hundreds of people involved in making just a single space for World of Warcraft. So the more practice you can get working in creative, collaborative spaces and being able to iterate, that'll serve you very well in looking at a career at Blizzard. Because one thing you've got to be able to do here, I'm sure, is take feedback and kind of work with each other.
Can I add one more thing? In your portfolio, don't do something we've seen before. We like the Pandaren buildings, they're awesome, but we've done them. Do something creative, something you haven't done before. You need to prove to us that you can do the job you would be asked to do when you work here, which is something new, something creative. Cool?
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Kevin from Salt Lake City, and I was wondering how you approach trying to create like the random nature of actual nature. Like, do you spend a lot of time, say, looking at stock photos of, say, forests or things? Because when we try to like place, like, create something, it's very frequently our human tendencies of making things ordered, like trees evenly spaced, as opposed to actual nature where things just kind of happen at random.
You want to take that? Yeah. So that's so true. A lot of artists go through that in the beginning, and level designers. But just be a student of reality and make sure things are grounded. A lot of us look at photos, would go out and take photos and references. And really, when you're walking through the spaces, I mean, you've seen it millions of times. When you're making a landscape, are we looking at the same popsicle trees all over? Are we duplicating? You really want to. What I like to do is make an individual cluster. I call them little vignette pieces, and you just basically focus on that individual piece, and then build up your little library, and then you look at the piece as a whole. And just kind of move them around and walk through the spaces, because you can easily build in a macro scale, and then before you know it, everything looks like Cybertown. Everything's duped all over the place. So it is a tricky thing. It looks so simple. If you can look at it, I'm just going to make a field. That's easy. But it turns out less is more. And it's something that I work at really hard. We all work at it, but it takes practice. So.
That's an excellent question, if I could just jump in here. I love that question because it really is one of the cornerstones of level design, making things natural. People really are clear about what nature looks like, and if they notice it, we've done it wrong. So we want to guide players using forest and trees and rocks and the very best sort of suggestion. This is the best way to go. This is the most exciting direction to go. By facing a rock a certain way, putting a forest. People don't see forest. It's static over here. Big forest, this path is going to be the way to go because it's an open world. Yeah. You can go anywhere you want to. So we want to make these strong nature suggestions on how to get there and where to go. Yeah. That's one of my favorite parts of making the game is guiding the player.
And true story, we were coming on the bus for practice on Thursday, and I tell you, Damarcus was taking pictures out the window of trees. And that's just between Blizzard HQ and Anaheim Convention Center. They're always looking for examples of how the real world looks to inform that reality.
Yeah, great question. I wish I had a Pepe on me I could give you, but I'm all out.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bruce from San Francisco. I love using the StarCraft 2 editor, and I loved having a chance to see the WoW editor. My question is, how do you guys collaborate with the tools team to build the software that you need to do your job, and how do you work with them on a day-to-day basis?
So I actually worked on the tools QA team. So I was testing the editor and just making sure that it worked properly and all the new features and everything. So when I came over, I had a great sense of what the editor was and how to kind of move things along. So now I work with the engineers, pretty much weekly at this point to get what we need to be a little bit more efficient, to be faster, to just quality of life things. It's very much we just walk over to their desks. Hey, this is causing me pain. Can you help me out? It's generally a pretty open conversation about it. In fact, our tools lead is hanging around back here, make sure everything is working.
Yeah, exactly. This is very scary right now, so hopefully
It's
everything
collaborative
works.
in that space as well. Like we're constantly working together to try and not just improve our process, but improve our tools as well. So they're constantly evolving. We literally get change notes for the tools almost on a weekly basis. There's a team committed to just doing that. On a game like World of Warcraft, that's vitally important because it means that we're constantly adding to the tool set that these guys can use to create the world.
Mm-hmm. Organic flow.
Hi, I'm James from Dallas. I'm involved with building sets for a lot of these out here we have Overwatch and StarCraft. So for me, it's kind of come full circle because I got into it because of World of Warcraft. And I was just wondering about the theatrical background. For me, it's come full circle. I went through theater, and now I'm back at WoW. And if you had anything to add about theater.
Oh, it's very relevant, especially in something like Overwatch. But our world, not so much since it's you can go anywhere, but we still try to use those same properties, principles, I guess, that you would use in theater. Like I said, guiding a player, making a path the way it should look. Lighting is a big thing. Lighting can do a lot for you. It can tell you if something is dangerous or tell you if something is cold, mood. Music as well, I guess that's another theater thing. I work a lot with the music department and our sound department. We have our own guys that come in. I'll make a video of a zone I like. I'll pick some music from some other movie, and it takes a while because you got to find the one that clicks, and then you're like, this is nice, and I'll talk to Russell or Jay and someone and say, look at this, how this sounds, and it fits together. So we got lighting, we got sound effects, we got music. All that stuff plays a part. So I guess it is sort of tied into theater and cinematics and all together. So
Specifically scenic design.
Scenic design, yeah. Well, yeah. Music alone. If we just had a desert, the music is going to tell you, oh, this is a dangerous desert, or it's a safe desert, it's a happy place. And the sound, the music, the lighting, everything is going to do that too, just like it does in theater.
Are there any guys on your team are there any guys on your team specifically that have theater background?
Maybe in our sound team, but none that I'm aware of. I don't think so. But
We've got a couple with film backgrounds, but
that's true.
no theater that I...
We're all big fans of any media like that, any theater and cinematics, everything.
Thank you.
Yeah, my background's in actually biology, which I think helps me create environments.
Oh, that's such a pain too, because I'm like, this would be cool plants. He's like, it would never be there.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Add more grass around that water. Water makes
I'm
things
like,
grow.
we
Come
got
on,
flying
guys.
carpets and stuff. It's okay to have a mushroom in the snow. And she's like, I don't know. That conversation happened too. We were like.
Hi, Turan Kopter from Turkey. I wanted to ask you a question about bridges. I know in World of Warcraft, when you create roads, you usually use textures, and you just place them around so that players can follow as a road. But when you create bridges or any type of those type of structures, when you need to bend them, do you use any spline modes to curve them, or do you work with the modelers to ask them, could you make this a little bit curved or so?
Yeah, well, we don't do it personally. We go and we talk to the modelers, and we can ask them to make changes if we need it. Usually, they give us something, and we work as best as we can to use that piece, as long as it's, within what we need. So if we need a custom piece, we go to them and they can change it for us, and that way we can kind of get to that end goal. But generally, we just kind of use what they give us.
Yeah. Also, sometimes we're involved in what the architecture, like the idea, the look and feel of the POI. So if the theme has that kind of motif, that's something that would follow through in like a bridge or something like that. If it's a rickety old bridge, then maybe that would make sense for it to arc. And a lot of that, like Colin was saying, gets worked on through the art team, and then we'll have a little input on how the environment connects the two pieces. So we'll stage it, set up the composition for it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Samuel. I'm from Ann Arbor, and I had a question on, World of Warcraft, as you guys have mentioned a lot, is very open world. And you guys talked about guiding players through your points of interest and those microcosms of environment. But what sort of tricks do you use to guide players through a large world, especially when players tend to try and just kind of go straight line, straight to an area?
I can jump on that. Yeah, definitely, like I was saying in the demo, we do little tricks like with the road. Sometimes the way the terrain cuts, we'll try to set up lines in the road, so subconsciously you just kind of see that you want to go in such a way. We kind of want to set up nice vistas, and then use lighting, trees, props to help guide you. A lot of times you may see plants and foliage, but we are really actually, you'd be surprised at how much we use like a little blade of a bush to hide a line to get you to go in another direction, and it usually works. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes, we just have to play test through it, but lighting the path, lighting up, using vertex to light up the ground path. Real quick, was that Ann Arbor, Michigan?
Yes.
Woot, me too. I was born. Anyway.
Yeah, I think we also do a lot of stuff where we'll frame a shot. So you'll kind of set up something where a player is going to be quested to. So you get the big yellow marker and you open your map and you're like, I'm going to beeline right there. So if we know that, then we can set up a really awesome way to get there. So there's a lot involved with quests too and flowing to the player.
Yeah, the flow of the zone helps dictate a lot of where we'll put the landmarks and how we'll frame them for the player.
Cool. Yeah, good question.
Cool.
Hello, my name is Eero. I'm from Finland. But my question is, you showed us the small point of interest and how you create them, but how do you connect these small points of interest into zones and initially to the whole world? How do you connect these small scenes to our areas and how do you connect the areas then to the bigger world?
That's a really good question. It's something that we're working on a massive scale. These are just kind of like small demos, but when we're working in a whole zone, so we kind of have a general sense of where we want the main points to be, but then we work most of our time on the interstitial part between them to kind of make it cohesive, so just getting the zones to flow really well together.
Right, and if you look at that Argus top-down that we showed you, you could see how there were actual POIs moving around, right? So as we build the zones, we also try to balance it and make it feel like a world, not just a couple of spaces with roads in between them.
Yeah, it's really important to have that organic phase in the beginning because on such a macro scale, we still need to tell a visual story on the micro scale. So there is different phases. We work massive to smaller to smaller. So it'll naturally kind of build itself along with the story and stuff. Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Hi there, my name is Aaron. I'm from Somerville, South Carolina. I got kind of a lighter question for you guys. Whenever you start to finish up a zone, do you ever find some secluded corner or cave or something like that and hide an item or an asset as your personal signature?
Oh my God.
Never.
Be careful what you say.
Yeah. So you may have seen skeletons around the world,
Right.
and that's actually one of the areas that we have a lot of fun with. So we tell little stories of how someone died, And yeah, we have a twisted sense of humor. So I have one I did in Pandaria, and if you see a little pond, and there's a raft, and there's some flowers and some food and the stuff. It looks like it was a nice little romantic spot. But if you dive down under the water, there's a skeleton, and he's down there, and the flowers are wilted. He's got a bunch of the wine bottles with him, and he got jilted. So we do stuff like that everywhere.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's definitely about 100 Alec plushies hidden around on Draenor, so.
Yeah, everywhere.
We're not supposed to do that stuff.
Yeah.
Don't tell anybody.
So cool.
Hi, I'm Jessica James. I'm from Costa Mesa. My question's about terrain. You mentioned doing section sketches to inform your design, and I'm wondering, does that mostly inform landforms, or are you using tools like a landscape architect would do, like grading plans or section elevations?
So for me, I tend to need to get a sense of grading and also creativity with the way the POI will eventually be laid out within the space. So I'll do a sketch just to kind of work it out in my head. And then when I'm pitching it to other designers and artists, it's a way to another form of communication. The other thing is going right into the editor, because you can edit just as fast with the terrain and accomplish the same thing. It's just we all have different styles to get there, and mine, I have I'm more of a heavy art background, so drawing is just second nature for me to just sketch it out. So that's how it works for me.
Yeah, I mean, I do 3D completely, so I'll just get in and start pushing, pulling, and when we actually are using the editor, we also have the game client open, and so we can sit there at game level and watch as we sculpt the terrain, and see how it's coming together and make it feel like a real landscape, and yeah.
Yeah, running around is definitely the biggest part of it, because you'll get a sense of how it feels just running around in the game client. Something that looks like perfectly as you would see it in nature doesn't always translate well into the game. So it's one of those things you're just always constantly pushing and pulling on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's more of a concept-y, fast-paced communication thing.
Hi, I'm Philippe from Rhode Island, and I just had a quick question about certain textures and objects in the game. So I see like Zeppelins and Orgrimmar with like very flat ropes and like kind of seems sort of oldish, but then I see the barrels and like the candles in these new instances, and they look awesome. Is there like a certain thing that stops you from updating those old textures, and is there a certain challenge, or are you guys just too busy making new stuff?
Busy making new stuff, and that's really the art team. We are constant, as designers, we are constantly asking the art team for more and new, and we make these amazing expansions that add so much more to the world. We've just got to balance at certain points of kind of like, we could go back and retexture everything, but who knows how long that would take. Whereas we want new stuff too. So the art team have a hard job, and they've constantly got to assess that balance and try and make sure that they're providing new things as well as going back and retexturing. Sometimes it'll be driven by content. If we're going back to revisit a space for new content, it might get a little bit of a spring clean, like we did with Karazhan, for example. So it depends on the content, and we're trying to strike a balance there. Because we could spend all time, constant. There's always our ambitions always outstrip how much time we have to be able to do everything we could imagine.
The game is a few years old, and there is a progression of performance that has happened over the years. And there were things we just couldn't do years ago that we can do now, and we can put more resolution into things now than we could before. And there's going to be discrepancies between what you're seeing in Orgrimmar, one of the shipping cities, to what you're going to see in some of the new zones that we're doing today.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Daniel from Sacramento. I just have a quick question. Do you guys work exclusively with the paddable pens, or do you ever switch to the mouse at all, or is this just a...
I don't even work with a Cintiq. Actually, I just have a Wacom at my desk. I use the mouse for placing props and things, so I'm constantly switching, around to whatever feels right for that task.
And I have the most convoluted process ever. I use everything. I work like Colin, but then I also use Cintiq when I'm painting. So yeah, it's all over the place.
I actually use a little mini gamepad instead of a keyboard.
There you go.
It works better for me.
Thank you.
Whatever you're comfortable with. If people don't know, these are Cintiqs. They're just monitors you can draw on top of. That's what they mean by that. And there's these tablets, which is what I like to use, so people can use both. Pressure sensitive or whatever. Good question.
Hi, I'm Carlos. I'm from the Bronx. My question's about the transitions. I know that when we started the session, started talking about how you sort of worked small and sort of expanded from there. And it's a little related to the earlier question about making sure everything was natural. One of the things I remember about Legion was everybody was really complimenting about how well the zones flowed into each other. Like going from High Mountain to Stormheim felt really natural. Whereas, say, in Vanilla, like nothing else looks like Deadwind Pass and nothing else looks like Stranglethorn Vale. How easy or difficult is it, between then and now and into the new expansion, is it to sort of make sure that as you create these new continents and zones, going from one to the next still feels like you're sort of naturally moving through, an entire world and not just here's one little box of quests, here's your next little box of quests?
I would definitely say it's an art form in itself, especially in terms of the transition from one POI, from one zone to the next zone as well. Having an understanding of the macro and what we're trying to get at overall, and then just doing the blending in between. Definitely, lessons have been learned from the first, from way back to now. We've all played, and we got to a point where you can fly now, so that's in our mind as we're working. So there's a lot of lessons that's been learned.
Yeah, I mean, Vanilla was never designed for flying. And when we did Cataclysm, we actually spent a significant amount of time making mountains that connected the zones. And we had huge spaces to fill, because just from the design get-go, we weren't planning on that. So it wasn't as big of an issue then. And now we know at some point we're going to be flying. So we definitely planned it out from the beginning to make sure that everything connects in a way that makes sense and is cool and has areas to explore and all that.
Okay, folks. I think that's about all we have time for today. So I'd like to thank you all for coming. It's an awesome opportunity. It's really great. BlizzCon is awesome for all of us because we get to meet all of you and we get to hear your feedback and hear about how much the game means to you. So thank you very much for coming. Hopefully you enjoyed this insight into WoW level design. And I'd like to thank all the team for taking part and everyone else who made this possible.
Good job.
Thank you for attending Design Craft, Building Blocks of Level Design. Up next, stay a while and listen. True Stories Live.